Hello, ladies and gentlemen. We are back in the digital physical tiny room. I am one of the co-hosts of Michael and Benjamin's podcast. I am Michael, and I am the one who is physically in the tiny room. And I am joined by the man who has been called the man who thinks that 3 is... Oh, no, I've got that wrong. Ben, say hello.
Hello, I am the man who thinks that 4 comes after 4, Michael.
Yes, that was very funny. Benjamin.
Yeah.
Benjamin, you're back in Italy.
I am. I'm back in sunny Italy. How warm is it where you are, Michael?
Ben, I am freezing my anus off
you're
in the tiny room.
Lovely. The anus tightening tiny room. Not for the usual reasons.
No, the tiny room, I think, is... I have become accustomed to the tiny room being occupied by 2 or 3 people on occasion. And now it's just me and the heating's off. And Ireland has edged into winter.
Oh, no.
And it's bloody freezing.
Did it snake up on you?
It didn't really snake up. It just kind of appeared. I think Thursday morning was frosty.
Oh, it had a big glamorous announcement. I'm here. I'm freezing. Get used to it.
The only thing that anyone talked about on Thursday was, bit nippy this morning, wasn't it? Bit nippy. Bit nippy this morning. First frost, wasn't it? Oh,
fierce.
Benjamin, speaking of nippy, this week I read Saga, the Collected Edition, Issue 9.
Issue 9, a trade paperback.
Are they called issues? Collection 9?
They're Volume 9.
Volume 9, that's it. Ben, full of nipples.
Nips.
Ben, last week the listeners heard that you liked penises in your comics.
Yes, they did, and we highlighted that on the Instagram, just so people knew.
Yes. Well, if you like penises in your comics, you have to get on this saga. Cause
boy.
Nothing but dicks in this.
Have I got a penis issue. Comic for you?
Oh, tons of dicks. Dicks everywhere. It's a festival of dicks.
A festival of dicks? Dear God.
A dick festival. Benjamin, look, very good, though. Worth getting. It's dicks and emotional impact.
It just seems to be one of those wonderful series that keeps consistently delivering great content.
Fire content, Benjamin.
Yeah.
It's the new, as far as I'm concerned, the new Walking Dead in terms of consistency and emotional impact. It's very good. Everyone should read it. If you don't read it, you're a real dick.
Saga's where it's at. We have a video on how good Saga is up on our podcasts.
We did many months ago. More
than
a year ago.
One of our most successful early releases.
Yeah.
So go and check it out. The audio quality is for naught, but look.
Because, Ben, the audio quality isn't great because that was before you discovered the secret hacks of putting your microphone inside a tea towel, inside a cup.
Just wondering how long it'd be before we noticed that. So anyone who's a long-time listener of the podcast will be aware that I'm not always the most organised of souls. I wouldn't say that's my default setting in life.
No.
And currently, my Blue Yeti microphone, which is not a cheap piece of equipment, is lacking a fairly substantial part of equipment. The Blue Yeti microphone, for those that don't know, comes with a lovely weighted stand, so you can have a solid base from which to record with very little vibration. There's some foam padding on the base. Yeah. Mine is currently sitting on my countertop at home in Ireland.
Yeah, and you're not there, are you? You're in Italy.
As we've just covered, Michael, I'm not in Ireland. I am in a country beginning with I, but it's
Italy.
Not the one it needs to be.
Yeah.
Never let it be said that we would ever allow the podcast to lapse into undoing. So with sheer commitment, brute force, and quite frankly, I would say a minor stroke of genius, it now rests inside a lovely mug with a tea towel around the base to stop major vibrations around the inside of the mug. And it works perfectly.
Very intelligent. Benjamin.
Yes.
Speaking of things that have, in your opinion, turned out unexpectedly well, have you been keeping abreast of the Joker situation?
Yeah, so I may be switching camps.
Ben, that was an incredible segue.
It was very smooth.
I've ruined it now. But
like butter. But, it was so good, it bared a mention.
Yeah, go on. Tell us about it.
It was very good. So, as many of our listeners will know, and maybe some won't know, the Joker is getting his own standalone movie.
We talked about it last week.
Starring Mr. Joaquin Phoenix. It is produced by Martin Scorsese, and Todd Phillips is directing it. Anyway, naturally, one of the major flaws that has been pointed out in this is there's no Batman. There's no Batman, and the world's looking at it going, why would we do this without a Batman? And it's not an unfair point. No. But I'm cautiously optimistic for a number of reasons. Before Michael,
remember how pointless Steel was without Superman?
It just doesn't make sense, Michael.
No, it doesn't make any sense.
You have Shaquille O'Neal. I understand you need to use him, but still.
Steel O'Neal.
Very good.
Shaquille O'Steel.
I like them both.
Riffing on 90s comic book movies.
Yeah, you nailed it, buddy. You got it. Anything for Spawn in the canon? Anything in the barrel there?
Michael J. Spawn.
Yeah, you kind of lost it there, buddy. But no, it's
important.
About the
Joker bin.
It's important that you tried. So naturally, this has caused uproar in the nerd community as a whole. Especially when new footage surfaced of him in an L suit. But just to go back through some of the tweets that I found here, we'll include some of them in the video. It's very enjoyable. It's caused a real split in people. So there's the 3 Joker theory, and in response to that idea, one person tweeted, "How many Jokers does it take to screw in a light bulb?" Not very clever, but it's just one of these things. Then
what's
there's
the
one.
Answer?
It's one, I think. Just one.
He's a competent adult. Yeah.
Not a great setup. The best thing about the origin of the Joker is that there isn't one. Batman is constantly lied to and misled by the Joker. This is the dumbest idea. That's from Phil, also named Phil.
The people got over Wolverine not having an origin as well. I said Wolverine like an American there. Hold on, let me say that again. People got over Wolverine not having an origin.
There we go. That's much better to my ears now. So it's kind of nice to see the split, because then other people are saying, I need the taste of Leto's Joker out of my mouth, so I'm 100% on board with this. That's from
Mike. What was the taste in his mouth?
Mike Silly, and the only advice I have for Mike Silly is don't let Jared Leto's Joker put anything in your mouth.
Yeah, he's a bad egg. He'll send you a condom in the post.
Or maybe he won't wear a condom, which is kind of worse.
Oh, that's not what I meant.
Well, that's what I meant. So yeah, we're going to keep going there. A lot of people seem kind of offended that these 2 Jokers will exist at the same time. For example, how many people are playing the Joker? What the fuck is one of the tweets, and that's in response to the fact that Jared Leto exists as the Joker. He will be in Suicide Squad 2, and Joaquin Phoenix is going to be the Joker. To which I say, boo to you, sir. Boo
there
to
are multiple Supermen running around at the moment as well. What with Henry Cavill possibly being out, but also Taylor Hutchin,
who plays a very, very Boy Scouty version of him.
I quite like him, actually.
Yeah, he's not bad.
Apparently, Ben, the Supergirl Arrow Flash crossover this year is going to be Elseworlds.
Oh, that'll be interesting.
And they're going to introduce Metropolis and the Bat Family.
The Bat Family's to be introduced, is it?
Starting with Batwoman, played by Ruby Rose.
Ruby Rose. I'm okay with that. I'll allow it.
That's good. Well, I'll send them a message and let them know.
I shan't take and make war on my keyboard about it. I'm going to let it go. But also, just the final tweet that I want to finish there was from Hunter Given. I've never been more torn about something. The Joker definitely doesn't need an origin movie, but Joaquin Phoenix is brilliant. And that's kind of the tack that I'm taking with it at this point. So we saw a couple of, we've seen some test footage now. I think Todd Phillips is painfully aware of how divisive this is, and he's really trying to get out in front of it. And, he's sending a lot of behind the scenes stuff. He's showing you a lot of test footage, and the test footage is promising. Joaquin Phoenix is bringing that real subtlety and a proper menace to the role that's been missing for a while, since Heath Ledger's Joker, I suppose. And it's interesting to see that kind of come back in very strongly. People are losing their minds about the suit. So his suit is not purple.
Yep.
Now he's still wearing. Yeah, we had this discussion already.
We talked about this last week. Go on.
With this in mind, I took a look back, Michael. I took a look back at some of Martin Scorsese's work.
You cast your mind backwards.
I did. I went backwards. Have you ever heard of The King of Comedy?
Yes.
It is a film with Robert De Niro.
A classic film.
And it's about a failed comic who kind of loses the plot a little bit to do with breaking into late night television. Does that sound familiar at all?
Is that the origin of the Joker, do you think?
It is. He's going to be a failed comedic performer in this particular run-on. And that suit is very reminiscent of the 70s suits that comedians would wear on television.
Yes, it is.
And stage. It's a full-piece suit with a bit of flair thrown in. So this isn't going to be your daddy's Joker, okay? This isn't your grandfather's Joker. How does that phrase work?
My daddy's Joker was probably the Jack Nicholson Joker.
Okay, go backwards. It wasn't your granddad's Joker.
No, my granddad only watched English wrestling.
That's quite cool.
Giant haystacks. Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
That's all he was into. He didn't like the Joker.
I like that indeed. He probably didn't like the Joker, but this seems to be a real push towards really honouring certain aspects of the Joker. I told you about the mask last week and how his new makeup reflects the mask from back in the day.
Yeah.
And, you know, it just seems to be... It's very much going to be a Martin Scorsese movie that happens to star a character that we all know.
Well, Ben, but it's a Todd Phillips movie.
Yeah, but it's Martin Scorsese produced, so I'm imagining he has a lot of influence in that way.
Steven Spielberg produced the Transformers movies.
Oh, never mind. This will not be the rock this is not the rock I make my stand on. It's just the rock I cautiously look to with a little bit of hope.
Okay. Yeah, that's fair. That's why I hoped the Transformers movies were going to be good.
Ah, buddy.
Ben?
Yes.
Do you have anything else to say about the Joker?
No.
Okay, speaking of...
Segue.
No, I have nothing to say. Speaking of, Ben, there's a new trailer for the Bumblebee. Which,
Michael.
Ben, I don't know if you would agree with me here. It largely looks like a remake of the 2007 Transformers movie.
It is a remake of the 2007 Transformers movie. Not to mention completely tonally inconsistent with the first trailer.
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it? It looks much more like a Michael Bay movie.
It's ridiculous. It's even bigger than it looks like if Michael Bay and that lad who did Valerian City of Planets had a baby.
Luc Besson?
I can't remember his name. Luc Besson. It looks like Luc Besson's set design with Michael Bay's flair for the dramatic had a baby and made Bumblebee.
Well, a lot of those scenes that you're saying look like that are set on Cybertron, the home planet of the Autobots.
Yeah.
And to be honest, Ben, as a long-time Transformers fan, it looks a lot like the video games, the War for Cybertron video games.
Are they quite famous in the?
They're quite popular.
Community?
They're kind of generally considered a better representation of Transformers than the movies ever were.
Fair enough.
But as a Transformers fan, Ben, you would have that trailer was for you as a Transformers fan.
Okay, well that's not so bad.
Soundwave, you know the guy who turns into cassette.
Yes.
Soundwave superior, Autobot inferior. I assume you'll put some flanging on my voice there later, Ben.
I don't see why not.
He looks exactly like his current toy that's on the shelves, and very very old school, very old fashionedy. And the jets on Cybertron, Ben, they transform into the jets that the jets transformed into in the original pilot episode of the cartoon all the way back in 1984.
So are you delighted secretly, Michael, in your soul?
No, to be honest,
Okay.
because looking back, the 1984 cartoon wasn't that amazing. All I know, we'll talk about it on a future episode, but all it really tells me, Ben, is that Transformers is a very hard thing to adapt for adults.
Almost impossible.
It's an inherently ridiculous concept.
Yes, it's for children.
It's not even for children. It's for people who have a really good ability to suspend their disbelief as to why these robots would come to Earth and then hide as cars. That's a ridiculous concept. And if you spend too long focusing on that concept, you're missing the point.
I've probably missed the point of Transformers then.
No, what I'm saying is the movie might be missing the point. Instead of doing that, just brush over why they're here and what they are.
And get into some good old-fashioned...
tomfoolery. Have an adventure.
Chicanery.
No, I don't know. It might be good. It doesn't look great, though, does it?
No, I didn't. There's a very big shift in tone that I didn't understand. It's gone from being kind of two best friends on a summer road trip they'll never forget to Haley Steinfeld will save the universe. And I don't know if I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I just don't know, Michael.
The more I see of it, the more it looks lush. Yeah, go on.
It ended up being. It looked like they were going for a very hard reboot, in the initial trailer, and now it looks like it's very close to the original quadrilogy.
Quintilogy? I think there are 5 of them.
Oh my god!
I think you are the only one who ever said reboot, Ben.
Oh, am I?
I don't think this was ever a reboot. If anything, it's a prequel for sure. But if anything, it was a soft reboot.
A soft reboot.
Yeah, it was never intended to be a hard reboot. It was always a prequel set in continuity, kind of. But, Ben, speaking of films that don't care about their own continuity...
Very smooth.
Amazing segues today. Have you seen the trailer for The Dark Phoenix?
This is the movie you said wasn't going to come out, Michael.
Well, I'm still not utterly convinced it is going to come out. It's been pushed back till June next year now, I think.
Yeah, that's true.
June 2019. I think it wasn't it originally supposed to come out now?
Soon.
Yeah. Or was it? Yeah, it was. It was November this year, then February next year, then June next year. Yeah,
It's. I'm not convinced Sansa Stark can pull this off.
That's actually not Sansa Stark. That's Sophie Turner. She's an English actress who plays Sansa Stark on the television show Game of Thrones. Yeah,
I really felt that her lack of experience with even modern technology probably would have held her back in the role. But now that you've explained that to me,
and acting, what with ruling Winterfell and so on.
I don't imagine ruling Winterfell would give you much time for acting.
Yeah. Also, it's kind of fun seeing the guy who played Cyclops, having seen him in a few more things now. Ready Player One, for example.
Not a bad actor.
Yeah.
He's kind of, he's not as much of an unknown anymore, for sure. Looks like he'll be getting a more vocal role in this rendition.
Do you think he'll just go around the whole time going, Gene?
Oh yeah, I think that's pretty much in his contract.
It's the curse of the Cyclops, isn't it?
There will be one Gene. There will be one Gene for every 15 minutes of screen time.
Well, that would be pretty restrained by Cyclops standards. Benjamin. Benjamin, I don't mean to put words in your mouth.
Go on.
Like Jared Leto's Joker probably would.
Oh, no. But dirty words.
Did you think that it was worryingly generic?
It is worryingly generic. It's look, this I think, Michael, and I know I gave you a little bit of a jab in there at the beginning of this entryway. I think this is just
don't you jab at my entryway.
This is just clearing the slate. This is a couple of reshoots now until 2019, making it as clean a break as possible, and then onto the reboot.
Send it all to hell and let Feige sort it out.
I think that's what's happening.
So even the music, Ben.
Yeah, it looks generic because it is generic. Also, I don't know if I want to be in a world where a Dark Phoenix saga doesn't end with Wolverine in tears with his claws stuck up Jean Grey.
Oh, Jesus, this is vulgar today.
It's awful rough today, sorry.
That is very interesting, Ben, that you've said that. Because I think what's happened there, Ben, is you have betrayed yourself. Somewhat of a lack of knowledge.
Oh, no.
This is so nerdy. About the Dark Phoenix saga.
I probably have.
Because the Dark Phoenix saga, Ben, as you know, has happened across multiple timelines and mediums.
Multiple timelines and mediums.
And only one of them ends with Wolverine knuckle deep in Jean Grey.
You did it better. I tried, but you did it much better.
Which is very interesting.
Much better. So, well, Michael.
Oh, Ben, before we go on to talk about Dark Phoenix, I saw Rogue One.
The Star Wars movie?
The Star Wars movie, yeah. It's actually reasonably good.
It's one of the only good Star Wars movies of the last couple of years.
Oh, no, not Rogue One. Sorry, Solo.
Oh, okay. And?
Yeah, it's fine.
And?
It's a fine movie.
I like that you put so much effort into your segues today and just blasted them all to heck.
I keep ruining my own segues, I know.
You're ruining the running order. What were you doing?
I'm stealing this line from someone, but I can't remember who said this, so I'm sorry for stealing their line, but the best summary I've heard of Solo, a Star Wars story, was Alden Aldenreich. Is that his name?
I don't know.
He's at the guy, the lead actor, they said he's a quite good actor playing a worse actor playing a terrible character.
Fair.
And I just love that. That was why I watched it. Someone said that in a review, and I said, I have to see that. That sounds quite funny.
Sounds taxing on that poor young man.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Why don't you, in honor of Ben? One of our most popular episodes in recent years was our Venom discussion.
Venom.
Do you remember when we talked about Venom?
Nom nom nom. Yeah.
Very good. We talked about Venom's multiple origins.
We did.
Talked about the comic book.
A comic book.
We talked about the 1990s animated series.
Yes.
And we talked about the 2003 Spider-Man 2.
Yes, he appeared in 3 renditions, and we decided which of them was the best in terms of origin, general characterization, aesthetic. We did a little run through.
And we decided that the animated series was the best.
Yes, we did. That was the reigning champion. Not only down to us, Michael. Not only down to us. That was a poll we put out to our
listeners,
our Insta fans, and they seem to agree wholeheartedly.
Because it's the correct answer.
Well, it is the correct answer. Yes.
So Ben, in honor of that, we're going to do the same today about the Dark of Phoenix.
Ah, good. We're running out of content. It's time to recycle. Excellent. I'm looking forward to it.
This is fire content, Ben, because it's the Dark Phoenix and she is fire incarnate, remember?
You have to use the word incarnate. That is actually in the contract also. Sophie Turner has to say that every 5 minutes of screen time in the upcoming movie. So
I am life, I am fire incarnate.
Yeah. Because that's just so important. And preferably it has to be done with, if in some way, an auditory exclamation mark included.
Benjamin.
Yes.
Why don't you start by telling us who even is Jean Grey in any ways?
Fair enough. Jean Grey is, well, in the beginning of the X-Men, she was the lead female character on the X-Men team.
No, she wasn't. She wasn't the lead female character. She was the lady one.
I was trying to be nice, Michael. I was trying to be nice.
Yeah, well, the 60s, Ben. It was the 60s.
Grand. It was the 60s. She was the only woman on the team. The only woman in the entire house. And she was part of Professor X's original X-Men lineup, who were the 4 original X-Men. Cyclops, Beast, Iceman, and Angel of all people.
Yeah, he's a bag of shit, isn't he?
So yeah, Angel was one of the original X-Men, which is a bizarre thing that's brushed over in his character even today. The original lineup of X-Men all had the same costume. They did. A blue or navy and yellow ensemble, and so did Jean Grey. But Jean Grey was not called Jean Grey at the time. She was called Marvel Girl.
She was called Marvel Girl, crap name.
Marvel Girl, terrible name. Name of the comic shoehorned, or name of the company shoehorned into a thing for no reason.
Like Captain Marvel.
So as time went by, she remained the only woman for quite a while on this lineup. And then she got a new costume. She got a green costume with kind of an extravagant.
It was a miniskirt.
Yellow. Okay. I tell you what. I'm going to be as diplomatic as possible, and you can just continue what you're doing and bulldoze through my diplomacy and really spell it out for what it is.
Good. Yeah,
sounds good.
Well, Ben, look, it's just me versus the 60s.
Yeah, you have
It's our new segment, Mick versus the 60s.
I'm totally okay with that segment. That sounds like a lot of fun. So she was telekinetic in the beginning, and she was also a telepath. But the telepathy came a little bit later. I think we pushed it a little bit more as it came along. She has always been defined as a much stronger telekinetic than telepath, although that gets retconned and changed depending on who's writing it.
Because they couldn't have her be a more powerful telepath than Professor X.
Yes, except if you're reading the Ultimate Comics or something like that, in which case she's ridiculously overpowered.
Which you shouldn't.
Anyway, overall, kind of loosely defined, bog standard bag of telekinetic powers, and then there's more tragic elements brought into her backstory as we go along. It turns out she's a very emotionally unstable person. Her powers are wildly beyond
Ben, as they were also known in the 60s, a woman. Take that, the 60s.
Zing. You got him again. The 60s
versus the 60s.
The 60s is too old to care. But generally speaking, and then what happened was, I suppose she would be a personification of female hysteria. It might be an interesting way of looking at it.
Yeah, she's always fainting.
Yeah, she was a real handful as well.
Defined as being like Cyclops' girlfriend. She had the least physical powers. Yeah,
to be fair, every single woman in comic books in the 60s...
She wore a miniskirt to a fight.
...was prone to fainting. Like, fainting was a 60s female comic book trope.
Invisible Woman.
Yeah, she was constantly fainting. She was always having an old faint.
If Invisible Woman was the 1960s ideal of the housewife, Jean Grey was the 1960s ideal of the young girlfriend.
The high school sweetheart. That's what she is.
Yeah, it's no good.
And it's funny that you should mention that, because the next thing is she's notoriously difficult to write in any kind of interesting way, because her characterization is so sweet. And she was a very sweet character for many, many years. That's until Claremont got his hands on her. And then Chris Claremont kind of began the Phoenix Saga. The Phoenix Saga is kind of the redefining and end of Jean Grey's original run with the X-Men. Now, the Phoenix Saga comes in two parts. You have the original Phoenix Saga and you have the Dark Phoenix Saga. So these are the two kind of frames that we come into. Bizarre when we come into the Phoenix Saga. It is kind of classic 70s comic book storytelling. It's a lot of fun to go back through and figure out how we do all this. So me and Michael started this conversation by having a bit of joke about the Jean moment that we always have, and the power incarnate. All of this kind of really strong characterization comes from that 70s run. So the Phoenix Saga began in 1976, and it's to do with the X-Men are transported to a space station somewhere in the space. Space. Stuff happens. Things kick off. Mutant powers are used. There's a couple of karate chops in there.
Yeah,
I'm doing karate chops.
It's usually
on the
screen, the Macron crystal, isn't it?
Yeah, but you can't see me do my karate chops. But I'm doing lots of karate chops.
Well, Ben,
right now,
unfortunately, I can see it. They're dreadful karate chops. You looked like you were dancing in the 70s. Yeah, stop it.
Chris Claremont.
Ben, let's talk about Chrissy C for a minute.
We'll talk about him. Well, you talk about Chrissy C, because you've an axe to grind with Chrissy. I'll come back to my Phoenix.
I don't have an axe to grind. No, you go on, because this is important. You have to set us up here.
Okay, well, anyway. Jean Grey was at her all-time kind of mehness, and in kind of typical Jean Grey fashion, they have their main arc that wraps up, and then they have to get back to Earth. Now, to do that, they take a space shuttle and they go back down. But
what happens?
But there's a bloody solar flare, Michael, because it's the 70s.
Oh, cosmic radiation.
And whenever you need a bit of fucking hassle in space, you get a fucking solar flare. That's what you do. So there's cosmic radiation. Turns out the pilot of the ship is dying. He's going to be dead before he can get them back down safely. There are two parts to the ship, Michael. There's one with radiation shielding, and then there's the cockpit with no radiation shielding, which apart from being an abhorrent oversight on the part of those ship manufacturers.
Ridiculous.
Who doesn't radiation shield their cockpit? What kind of maroon? Yeah. What kind of maroon?
I do.
So you always double check your contractors. You only hire professional cockpit radiation shielders.
No, what I meant was that I wear lead underpants.
You do that as well. Oh, your literal cockpit.
Yeah, isn't that good? That's a good joke, isn't it?
That was
Carry on.
That was a good joke. Carry on. So anyway, Jean Grey, being the bloody high school sweetheart, the self-sacrificing, self-suffering martyr that she is, agrees that she will read the mind of the pilot, take his knowledge and experience, and pilot them all down safely.
That's why she has to do it. Very clever, Jean.
And this is where bloody Scott comes in. He's like, Jean, no,
Jean,
no, Jean, no. Anyway, Jean. Long story short, she gets the X-Men back safely, but somehow she's survived. And that's because in the middle of all the bloody cosmic solar radiation, a fiery spirit comes and speaks to her. It's not Jesus Christ, our Lord and Savior. It's the bloody Phoenix Force. Which is
in the comic, Ben, does a fiery spirit come and talk to her?
Yeah, it's a fiery female form. She has a word with a fiery female embodiment. Which is kind of interesting. And the thing talks to her and explains that it will give her the power to do this in return for being hosted by her. So this is how the Phoenix Force, and that's what it's called, comes into Jean's life. And when this all happens, we get a bit fuddy-duddy here, and it turns out that Jean's real body is in a cocoon at the bottom of Jamaica Bay in the States for some reason.
That's years later. Forget about that. Forget about that bullshit. We're not talking about that.
We're not doing that bullshit. Okay, fair enough.
No.
But anyway, the Phoenix Force then resides in Jean. She becomes all-powerful. A lot of the blocks that were put on her by Professor Xavier are completely lifted. She gets a new costume, form-fitting, green and gold. It is one of the traditional costumes, not used in other media, but one of the big ones in kind of her history. And anyway, time goes by. There's a little bit of a run-in with the Hellfire Club. Maybe.
Well, now, Ben, I don't think you can just say a little bit of a run-in with the Hellfire Club.
So,
because it's vital.
That's the original Phoenix Saga then. Okay, do you want to do your Claremont now, and then I'll do the Dark Phoenix Saga? Or would you like
Well, Ben, Claremont, Chrissy C. Sea Dog. Chrissy Claremont. Sea Dog. He likes... well, I don't know that he personally likes, but I suspect he does. He likes bondage and fetish wear, and he seems to be particularly into mind control, sexual subjugation.
That's funny you should mention that, Michael, because that plays a key role in the Dark Phoenix Saga. But go on.
Well, I know, Ben, that's why I have mentioned it. So... A young Chris Claremont, Ben, watched a TV show called The Avengers. I don't know if we've talked about this before. He watched a TV show called The Avengers, the British Avengers, with Emma Peel.
Yes, I remember it.
And
I remember it.
There's an episode of that where Emma joins the Brimstone Society. And she becomes mind-washed or brain-cleansed. Or brainwashed, if you prefer. And she puts on a sexy outfit. And becomes a kind of dominatrix-looking character. But she's a kind of dominatrix-looking character, but she's brainwashed into subservience, which I think is what Chris Claremont's into. But anyway, Ben...
Chrissy
if you go back and look at that episode of The Avengers, the Brimstone Society, I believe it's... A Touch of Brimstone is the name of the episode. It's exactly the Hellfire, the Dark Phoenix Saga. Jean is brainwashed. The Hellfire Club are after her power, basically.
Yeah.
So she's brainwashed by Mastermind, whose name is Jason Weingard or Jason Wingard.
Depending on what way you say it.
One of the interesting things about 1990s cartoons, and I'm not veering into the cartoons too much here, is they were recorded by actors not sitting in the same room together. Which is often true of modern cartoons. But if you watch the 1990s animated series, Cyclops calls him Jason Wingard and Jean calls him Jason Weingard. Often in the same conversation. But that's entirely irrelevant. So she gets a brain wipe and they try and make her into a sexy lady.
Yes.
And she's like, I don't want to be a sexy lady, I want to be evil.
Fair enough.
So she blasts off into space.
Yay.
And when she's in space, Ben, and this is a very important, vital part of this. I've kind of taken over telling you what the Dark Phoenix is.
Okay, I'm fine with that. I don't mind. I've done a lot of speaking so far.
When she blasts off into space, Ben,
yes,
she gets tired, so she eats a star.
Oh, good.
And then the star explodes, and she kills billions of inhabitants of a solar system.
Well, that's a bit mean.
Yeah, that is not great. So the Shi'ar, Ben, you know who they are.
The Shi'ar Empire.
Yeah, they're the aliens who are also kind of birds and also dickheads.
Yeah, real bad eggs.
Yeah,
the Gladiator works for them, doesn't he?
Yeah.
Marvel's most powerful being.
Sentry, Galactus.
He can take on a Sentry though, can't he? Can't
I don't know if
Gladiator
Galactus and Sentry have ever encountered each other. That would be interesting.
Gladiator's an interesting one because, on a quick side note, Gladiator's powers are only limited by his confidence.
Yes, so are Captain Britain's.
It's a bizarre cap to put on a power, but basically, if he's having an off day, he can't do much.
And imagine how powerful I would be if my power were based on my confidence.
Christ, we'd all be we'd all have Mick-shaped kind of flags
Phalluses.
everywhere. No.
Flags, yes.
No,
that's
flags,
much better than what
flags, Michael. Jesus. Nobody wants a Mick-shaped phallus. Jesus.
No, a lot of people do. I have a web store. Check out my web store, dicksshapedlikemick.com. Ben, stop for a second. What are we talking about? Yes, so she destroys a Shi'ar ship.
Yes.
And then she comes back to Earth, and Professor Xavier's like, no, Jean, you're too powerful. Let's put some mind controls on you. And she's like, oh, yeah, that sounds like a great idea. That didn't cause this problem in the first place. So they put some mind controls on her, and everything's fine. Until the Shi'ar Empire, also known as the Shiite Empire, got them. They show up and they're like, we demand retribution for killing all those folks. So they have a trial of honor. Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
it is fair.
Yeah,
like billions of people died.
Yeah, which is
so
fair.
They're like, we want to kill her, please. And Professor Xavier's like, no, she's a lady. So they have a trial on the blue area of the moon, and the X-Men fight the Shi'ar, which is stupid because the X-Men are way less powerful than the Shi'ar. And the X-Men lose, Ben.
Yay!
And they attempt to capture Jean, but then she breaks the mind controls again.
Again, because we've already proven it's a faulty strategy to begin with.
Stupid idea.
Yeah.
So then, Chris Claremont, you weird fetishist, you. No, let's not kink shame Chris Claremont. You live your life, Chris. You do what's good for you.
We here at Michael and Benjamin's podcast are very much kink positive.
Yes.
We don't do body shaming, we don't do kink shaming, we don't do any kind of shaming really, unless you're a bad egg, in which case you will be shamed on the pod.
Yeah. Ben, what was I saying? Yes, so the Shi'ar are like, okay, we're going to get her now. And then she becomes Dark Phoenix. And then they have to team up to try and stop her from destroying the universe.
Not the universe, Michael.
And Ben,
yes,
Jean Grey realizes what she's becoming and kills herself.
Oh.
You know what that's called, Ben? That's called a degree of agency.
Because she's a woman who gets to make her own decision.
Well, it's not to do with being a woman, but you can see why people were upset that it is Wolverine who kills her.
In the film.
In the 2006 movie.
Terrible movie.
Now, she kind of asks him to.
In fairness, that's because of a follow-up to the original Dark Phoenix saga called Phoenix Endsong, or Dark Phoenix Endsong. Bizarre kind of... The only way I can describe it is like airbrushed soft porn.
Oh yeah,
it's bizarre. It's with that art style that's just very polished and very false looking, and all the women are very very clearly modeled on either porn stars or Victoria's Secret models.
But skinny but busty.
Yeah, skinny but busty, exactly. And in that, this is where Wolverine is introduced as killing bloody Phoenix, because she comes back, and he's the one that has to do away with her.
Yeah, everyone stop making it about Wolverine. It's not Wolverine's story.
It's
Wolverine is a bit player in the Dark Phoenix story. Yeah. So, Ben, that's the original Dark Phoenix story.
And then...
But a lot of people remember it from the 1990s cartoon.
Yay, 1990s cartoon. You're awful at theme tune recognition.
Yeah, that was bad, actually. There you go. That's too slow, though. That's too slow. Faster.
There was a really great YouTube documentary on how they created that theme tune.
Yes, I know. I told you about it.
Did you?
Yeah. But you can tell the listeners anyway, because some people might have missed that
episode. It's cool. It's from, I think it's NerdSync. Is it NerdSync? But they interview the creator of that theme tune, and it's really funny because they play the original kind of version of the theme tune from a failed pilot in the 80s, and it's literally someone saying the word X-Men heroes.
X-Men. We
might try and find it and insert it here in the thing just so you can hear it.
If you were to make a 1990s or 1980s cartoon about the Dark Phoenix saga with the writer of that theme tune, it would just go Jean, 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 Jean! Which would be absolutely amazing.
Speaking of theme music, we forgot to include our theme music at the start. We've missed a...
Oh no! Oh no! We always... but that's one of the best bits.
I'll still put it in here. Ready? 1, 2, 3.
We're going to do the theme music.
It's good. We
43 minutes into the podcast.
Don't see why not.
We're mixing up the establishment.
Keeping our listeners on their toes.
So Ben, the 90s cartoon.
Yes.
Have you seen it?
Yes, of course I have.
It's considered a classic. Ben, it's not that great, to be honest.
No, it doesn't hold up.
Very good theme tune. Great character designs. The characterization is very good, actually. They're really well defined characters. The voice work is dreadful, but the voice casting is very good.
Yes. Everyone
sounds right, but the actual delivery is pretty Gene.
Yeah, it's stiff. It's very stiff.
Yeah, it's very stiff, and they often respond to each other in the wrong way, like because they're not hearing each other's lines, obviously.
Yeah.
So anyway, Ben, the major difference in the 90s cartoon, they actually do the Phoenix Saga, and they do the Hellfire Club part of the Dark Phoenix Saga. But in the cartoon version, she wears blue tights instead of being bare-legged.
Very nice.
Yeah. Ben's into blue tights, everyone. Chris Claremont, mind control, sexual domination. Ben, woolly blue tights.
I'm a simple man.
So Ben, the majorest difference really is about Jean Grey herself. In the comics, I felt there's always a question of have I lost you, or are you just sitting completely still?
Completely
you haven't blinked in like a minute.
Sorry.
I thought you'd put your screen on pause and gone off for a cup of tea or a piss.
That's actually what I do most of the time when we do these trans country bloody podcasts. Frequently I will pause the screen with a slight smile of amusement on my face and go off and make a cup of tea. I call them my Mick breaks.
Oh, very good. What was I saying? In the comic, there was always a question of whether or not the Phoenix... In modern times, the Phoenix is definitely a separate entity.
Yeah.
But in the comic, in the original saga, they didn't know if the Phoenix was Jean or something else.
Yes.
In the cartoon, they couldn't kill Jean off. Too grim for a cartoon.
Yeah, it was a kid's cartoon on Fox TV.
Yeah, so the Phoenix entity is definitely 100% a different entity that possesses Jean.
Okay.
It is not Jean.
Fair enough.
Also, the planet she destroys is uninhabited.
Of course, because you couldn't actually have the moral, ethical quandary of if you're possessed by a giant space force and you murder a bunch of people, is it actually you?
Yeah.
You can't introduce that concept into children. Can't do that.
Thirdly,
yes.
And the cartoon goes a lot of the same way. You know, she flies into space, she destroys a planet, she attacks a Shi'ar ship.
Yes.
They challenge them to a duel on the moon. The X-Men lose. The Shi'ar are trying to capture Jean, so the X-Men fight Jean. But when Jean is killed by the Shi'ar, the Phoenix goes, "Oh, sorry everyone. Look, I was a bit of a dick there.
My bad.
Yeah, my bad. I now understand love."
Oh, what?
Look, I'll tell you what I'll do.
Boo.
Yeah, I'll tell you what I'll do. I'll fuck off, and I'll bring Jean back to life for you.
Oh.
And everyone goes, "Oh, yeah, that's ideal." And that's what happens.
That's worked out so well.
It works out arguably too well.
Yeah.
The great thing about the Dark Phoenix saga is Jean's sacrifice for either as penance for genocide, or because she's too terrifying a force to be loose in the world.
It's fair enough. I've always found it to be an interesting thing. However, I generally dislike how the Phoenix power is used. It's always used as a bit of a Hail Mary. at the end of a storyline. Classically, since we're talking about different versions, the Ultimate X-Men storyline uses it far too often as a giant Hail Mary pass. The Ultimate X-Men originally was a great series in its initial days, and it very good. It just went tits up towards the end there.
Robert Kirkman, unfortunately, made a balls of it.
Kirkmaned it so hard.
We've said this many times on the podcast before, Ben, but Robert Kirkman, creator of The Walking Dead, Invincible,
cannot do
Battle Pope,
cannot do continuity. Good.
He doesn't play well with other people's toys.
No, he doesn't at all. They twisted her character awfully. Initially, she was started as a wonderfully kind of fully personalitied, intelligent character in the Ultimate X-Men universe. Far more interesting. Had a pixie cut before it was really in vogue. The whole thing. She was a trailblazer. And then bloody Kirkman made her. Professor X fell in love with her.
Everyone fell in love with her.
Everyone fell in love with her all the time. She was always brought in at the last minute to save everybody. Just real bad writing. I hate Hail Mary writing. It's awful.
One of the best things about the comic book version of Dark Phoenix and the cartoon version of Dark Phoenix is they both really established Jean before doing it.
Yeah.
In the cartoon, they waited till season 3, Ben. What restraint.
That's quite a bit of restraint.
Isn't it?
It couldn't be argued any other way.
And even, Ben, even the dreadful X-Men The Last Stand from 2006 by Brett Ratner.
May it never draw breath again.
Even that waited at least till the third movie.
Yeah. But they never defined her character very well, though.
Well, she was in love with Scott and Logan.
Famke Janssen was a poor choice.
I always thought she looked a bit too old and serious.
I have always pictured, and this is bizarre, if we're going back to... I'm going to sound very BuzzFeed with my next statement, because they love if X-Men were cast in the 90s kind of thing. But I have always pictured a Julia Roberts as a...
really?
I've always pictured a young Julia Roberts. And primarily because of her portrayal in the very, very good and underrated X-Men Evolution cartoon series.
They did a Dark Phoenix there as well, didn't they?
Yeah, they messed around with a Dark Phoenix there too.
Oh no, they didn't. Sorry, they didn't.
No, they touched on it. They touched on it,
yeah.
And they got cancelled.
It was Wolverine and the X-Men that did a Dark Phoenix.
Yeah, I never got around to that. Apparently, it was great. I never.
That was a good series. That was a very good series. In that series, Ben, it was Emma Frost who sacrificed herself to save the universe.
Good.
They always take it away from Jean.
They won't
let her.
They won't let Jean have her moment in the sun.
Yeah, it's either Wolverine kills her, the Phoenix decides that it was a bad egg all along.
Emma
Frost steps in and takes the sacrifice hit. Just let Jean do it. The thing about 2006 X-Men: The Last Stand, Ben, is it was kind of a prototype Batman versus Superman.
They should have learned from that. From that.
I'm saying they tried to take two classic X-Men stories
and smush them both together.
The Mutant Cure and the Dark Phoenix story, and just smush them both together and do neither of them justice.
Yeah.
And then ruin it by not having any cosmic aspect to it.
No, she was just oddly powerful.
It was just pure Jean, and then making it about Wolverine.
Pure Jean. That's what we're calling this episode.
Bloody Jean!
Pure Jean.
Jean. So, Ben,
yes,
let's decide together with our combined powers of having opinions, which one was the best.
It's a tough call. I've never particularly gravitated towards Jean Grey as a character. I just don't find it that interesting. But I did like this topic because she's so prolific, and because she's been cloned a bunch of times. There are clone versions of her, and now
most of the clones are bustier and sexier.
They are. That's a classic because
clone they're
trope.
Evil.
Clone trope. Your brassiere size goes up at least 2 when you're evil. It's to account for all the extra evil in your bosom. But yeah,
that's where evil is kept.
Yep, evil in your bosom. We've 2 contenders for the podcast name now. interestingly enough, her new... did you remember now that they brought the original X-Men back? Because the X-Men has become very convoluted in the comics. And we had our phase out of nuisance. Yes, it has. It was superfluous. And they brought back the original X-Men members. And her younger self is a very popular character now.
Yes.
In the universe, frequently seen with other teams like a Guardians of the Galaxy or something like that.
Although, Ben, I believe that their younger selves have finished their mission now and are going back to the 60s.
Oh, well, that's a shame. That's it. No, some of them stayed, didn't they? Some of them agreed to stay. I
think Iceman stayed.
Yeah, I don't know why.
I don't know. I can't remember. I haven't really been keeping track of it. I think it's nonsense. I think it's a terrible idea. But look, who am I? Who am I, Ben?
The X-Men has received B writers for a while.
No, Ben, who am I? I've forgotten.
You're Mick.
But the X-Men, people, if you're an X-Men fan, you're into this. This has always been what drew people to the X-Men. Mad, convoluted, time-hopping, transgenerational, weird epics.
It's true. In this case, I really don't think... I suppose, let's put it to the fans then. Do you have an opinion on this? Because I find it difficult to pick one. If I had to pick one, I'd probably go for the cleanest option, which is an L animated series. Because it's nice and cleaner than the original one. But your point about the Dark Phoenix saga ending with Jean's sacrifice is also nice, because it's her prime sacrifice in time.
Well, look, Ben, I think that the best one in this case is the comics. I think that by cutting out a lot of the weird, creepy Chris Claremont stuff and taking away Jean's genocide and decision to sacrifice herself, it really missed a lot of the point of it.
Yeah, creepy Chris Claremont is essential X-Men viewing. He's still widely regarded as one of the best X-Men writers of all time, isn't he? It's
Well, Ben, look, we're not going to kink shame him, because if you are a comic book reader, you have been exposed to years and years and years of
weird kinky stuff.
A lot of comic book writers are kinky dudes who are looking for a way to express it.
Yeah, fair enough. Stay tuned
look at bloody
for
Wonder Woman.
Michael and Mine's podcast next week. Blue Tights. It's the story of a young female superhero who gets powers from a magical set of blue tights. She can bend people to her will.
Wasn't there a comic like 10 or 15 years ago about a superheroine in a blue uniform, and she lost more and more of her powers as her uniform got ripped?
Really?
And yeah... And almost every issue of the comic ended with her essentially losing in some humiliating way because her costume kept getting ripped.
Oh, God. That sounds awful.
Yeah, but that was like 10 or 15 years ago. But that's basically Wonder Woman. It's the story of Wonder Woman with someone else's slightly different fetish on top of it.
That's true.
Because the guy who wrote Wonder Woman was all about her getting tied up and subjugated by the patriarchy.
Bloody patriarchy.
Anyway, so the best episode, the best version is the comic version.
We here at the podcast are on the comic book version then. But do let us know down below if you're a long-time comic book fan, and more importantly, if you're a big-time Jean Grey fan. I've never met a big-time Jean Grey fan and would like to. So
I've met a few. They're good people.
Let us know down below. Oh, I'm not saying they aren't. We don't fandom shame here at the podcast, Michael. We're completely anti-shame. We do shame. We're quite... anti-shaming. I give up. Ladies and gentlemen, we are on Facebook. We are on Instagram. We are on the Tube of You. You can find us on iTunes. We'd love a review. Let us know down below what you think of all this. And more importantly, let us know if you're looking forward to a Joker movie. Or other such things. Anything to add there, Michael?
Yeah, check out my web shop, dickshapedlikemick.com.
That's all from us this week, ladies and gentlemen. Bye.
I lost you there at the end.